All right, well, let's kick things off. For those of you who just joined, we're aware that the chat is having some issues. So our webinar host will respond as soon as we have info, but it's currently disabled. But welcome today. Really excited to be here with everyone. You're joining the webinar, Unified Measurement at Scale, How Marketing Leaders Can Leverage Influencer Marketing to Prove Impact. So we're gonna kick things off with just a quick overview and introductions. The webinar will last about 45 minutes. We'll start with a research presentation from Forrester's senior analyst, Jessica Liu. We'll move on to a panel discussion with Unilever's Casey DePalma McCartney and myself, and we'll end with an audience Q&A. So go ahead as you're listening to the conversation, questions come up, drop those into the Q&A. Our webinar host will ensure that the panelists get to see them. But let's quickly start things off with intros. Casey, I'll pass it over to you and then to Jesse.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for having me, Tim. It's great to be here with you and Jesse. My name is Casey DePalma McCartney, and I lead our brand communications work across Unilever in the US, across all our brands and categories. And I've been working on our influencer marketing efforts for years. I've been working in the space even before here. I'd probably say, Tim, somewhere around 12 years at this point. So a long time in the space.
And I'm Jessica Liu. I'm a senior analyst at Forrester. I sit on the B2C marketing team. I've been here 7 years covering social media, and then recently evolved into broader consumer personalization and MarTech, and now have expanded my coverage, which is exciting because I get to see how social media has sort of impacted and expanded into broader marketing purview. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So great to have you here, Jesse and Casey. And for those who don't know me, I'm Tim Sauve, Chief BD and Partnerships Officer at CreatorIQ. Much like Casey, I've been in the space for about 12 years, including the last 6 at CreatorIQ. And our focus, hopefully lots of people on this webinar know about CreatorIQ, but our focus is really to help enterprise brands and their agencies manage, measure, and scale their influencer marketing efforts globally. And I think we've finally reached a point in the industry where things like unified measurement, visibility, scale, these are real challenges, hopefully, for those, and really an opportunity for those who are on this webinar to learn from today. So Jesse, I'm gonna hand it over to you first, and then we'll come back for a Q&A.
All right. Hopefully everyone can see, but thanks for joining. I will skip past this title slide and go right into the good stuff. All right, because this is Forrester, I wanted to start with a classic Forrester data point. When we asked companies how sophisticated they are with using measurement and analytics to understand marketing success, you can see they're kind of clustered around grading themselves a 3 score or a 4 score on the scale of 5. With 5 being the most mature and optimized in measurement and analytics. And the goal and the question here really for us at Forrester is, how do we get more marketers to move towards maturity and clustered around the 4 and the 5 scores to really prove business value? Well, marketing ultimately needs unified marketing measurement to prove its impact, which our official sort of definition of Forrester is, you can see on the slide, unified marketing measurement captures a holistic view of paid, owned, and earned touch points, along with market factors that influence demand. It simplifies data collection, it coordinates statistical techniques, it measures strategic and tactical marketing across paid and owned marketing initiatives, and provides a predictive model to forecast business impacts of different investments. Honestly, it sounds magical. It sounds amazing. Yet, only 37% of the B2C marketing decision makers that we surveyed use unified marketing measurement to understand their marketing success. And that number, in our opinion, should be significantly higher. And this, as you can see in the footnote there, this is a survey to almost 800 B2C marketing decision makers. So, taking the next step in the marketing measurement journey is challenging for a lot of marketers. You just saw on the previous slide, 37% said they use unified marketing measurement. There are challenges to getting to that maturity. Maybe some of these sound familiar to some of you. But historically, challenge number one, marketers have had a myopic focus on marketing, which sort of ignores other influential factors. So because marketers have been so focused on hyper-focused on tactic and campaign and channel insights, they often overlook the influence of other factors like competitive activity, the economy, or emotion. Things like those extrinsic factors have on customer decisions. Another reason, companies' organizational silos don't always align across the customer journey. Many marketers we talk to and marketing organizations we talk to still operate in channel silos. They measure and report on specific metrics that matter within that channel. But customers are channel agnostic. They move across multiple touch points. They leave evidence like clicks, social media likes, conversions, physical store visits when they pursue what they want from a brand. So marketers kind of face this tough apples to orange comparison, trying to decide if spending more money in, social media, for example, or pulling pricing levers will be best to achieve overall marketing ROI goals. And then another reason for marketers feeling this challenge is that they often lack the skills, processes, and technology needed to be insights driven. Marketers kind of have this habit of maximizing media spend and minimizing all of their expenditures. And instead, they really should be allocating funds for the right tools that will allow them to include other functional data streams that are derived from, sales or product or customer insights, for example. And then further, marketers really need to integrate data, resources, and operations across all of the different functional groups to really ensure that the data and the insights are shared and that marketing actions are really coordinated across these functional groups and that they're aligned to a common business objective. Because honestly, without that, you won't be able to measure marketing's impact on business growth. So what will it really take to upgrade to this unified marketing measurement approach? Well, it's going to take 3 steps. And I know it sounds like an oversimplification, but bear with me and I'll walk through the 3 steps. Step 1, aggregate data from all marketing channels and external factors. So with this sort of ever-growing list of media and channels and touch points and devices, marketers really struggle to understand how to allocate their dollars most effectively. Maybe some of you feel this conundrum currently. Worse, the different metrics for these different channels create a lot more confusion. Like, for example, how do you compare, brand metrics of a TV campaign to click and conversion metrics for an influencer campaign, right? Unified measurement models are trying to fill these gaps and link all of the spending that you're doing in these channels to actual revenue by evaluating how channels drive incremental marketing impact while at the same time measuring the incremental impact of very specific marketing and media tactics. Which leads to step 2, use an ensemble of approaches to create a unified model. That's that layer here in the middle with the gears. I mean, no single methodology can really simultaneously handle the aggregate audience level data of traditional media and the individual consumer level data from digital channels, not to mention all of the external data about economy or competitive activity or any other external factors that can significantly impact consumer demand and results. So unified measurement is an attempt to deploy a variety of techniques that are tuned to a firm's very specific business objectives or their marketing strategy and the data they have available. So as maybe a tangible example, you might see a marketer weaving together marketing mix models, multi-touch attribution, and customer level propensity models to sort of measure that incrementality of media spending's revenue contribution relative to some baseline of likely sales in the absence of marketing. So you can really understand how marketing is impacting sales. And then third, this bottom layer on the graphic here, apply the model, or I should say step 3, not third. Step 3, apply the model to calculate ROI, evaluate alternative budget allocations, and optimize campaigns in flight. So marketing performance measurement vendors will embed sort of unified measurement models into their platforms, and then they combine data management, machine learning driven modeling, and predictive analytics and dashboards to give marketers direct access to these findings. And then clients can then have that access to more frequent marketing performance analysis. So for in-flight campaign monitoring, they can make adjustments on the fly. They would also be able to see detailed post-campaign and channel analysis to then inform future planning. So as a big part of the marketing mix, social media and influencer marketing really need to be included in this unified marketing measurement model, even though they're in theory newer channels compared to, traditional TV or print or out of home. They need to be incorporated into these unified marketing measurement models. And why? Really, another data point for you. Influencers or creators really play a big role in the marketing ecosystem, and particularly in social media. You can see here on the slide, we surveyed US adults, about 5,000 US adults, and asked them if they agree that social media influencers are the primary way I discover brands. And you can see the survey respondents heavily skew towards the younger age cohorts for those that did agree, specifically those under the age of 44. So it's important to think about how to incorporate social media metrics and paid influencer marketing efforts into this unified marketing measurement model, starting with feeding in the available metrics into the data aggregation layer. This would include things like, cost or money spent. It might include impressions, click-throughs, typically at the campaign level. And you'll recall earlier, I called this step 1. And I mentioned that marketers find it a challenge to kind of collect different metrics across the different channels. And I mentioned that unified marketing measurement models are trying to link spending to revenue, spending by channel or by campaign to revenue, by evaluating how channels drive incremental marketing impact, while at the same time measuring the incremental impact of specific marketing and media tactics, inclusive of things like influencer or creator campaign, or an organic social media campaign. But understandably, and I acknowledge I felt this pain personally as well, gathering metrics from social media platforms and influencer campaigns can be difficult, right? The metrics are not aligned from social media platform to social media platform. They're not apples to apples. The way they come through, how quickly, the frequency, also varies from social media platform to social media platform. So one way to maybe think about how to tackle social media measurement is to think about it in 3 types. So the first type is content impact, far left of this triangle. Content impact will really help you diagnose topic resonance to improve your social content execution, but it doesn't necessarily tell you anything about social media's effect on business outcomes. And if I'm being honest, your CMO might not care, but I acknowledge it does help those people on the front lines understand which content resonates with your audience, and could include, things like how much that post performed and engagement, like likes or shares or comments, right? The second type in the middle here is marketing impact. Marketing impact lets you measure how well your social media programs serve specific marketing goals. So this measurement type really requires quantifying the extent to which social media is helping you meet your objectives across the customer lifecycle, whether that's in the discovery phase or in the exploration phase, or maybe in the purchase phase or post-purchase, loyalty, engagement phases. Proving performance at this level, I think, is really crucial for marketers that are responsible for setting any strategic priorities or channel allocation decisions. And you could be assessing performance against, again, any marketing objective like brand lift or acquisition or retention, and using whatever specific KPIs to track those goals and benchmarking them over time. The third type of social media measurement, and is the most important type, hands down, is on the far right, business impact. This shows social media's programs deepest value to the business. And of course, naturally, it's the hardest type to achieve, but again, is the most important. So it really does require showing social media's incremental contribution to your business. And this is where we bring it full circle back to unified marketing measurement. This has to be the quantitative view of your social efforts that matters most to that senior leadership, that CEO, that CMO, and really requires connecting what you're spending on social media and your influencers, your creators, and connecting that to your hoped for outcomes. It could be revenue, it could be sales, it could be brand health, but you have to achieve this through unified marketing measurement models. So, and I should mention, sorry, on this slide, the goal is, of course, to move from left to right. You need to be able to demonstrate value, and it's fine to start in sort of a less mature state, but you ultimately want to get to this more mature state on the far right. That's really important. So when it comes to influencers specifically, maybe a little bit of a obvious statement, but long-term partnerships are really preferred. I mean, marketers today are finding it harder to sort of interest and commission and work with influencers. They might be getting less value from them in terms of the creative and community response, particularly on just sort of simple, straightforward sponsored posts. Long-term partnerships are really a better approach for marketers than sort of cycling through one-off pay-per-post influencer sponsorships. And it's a win-win for both the brand and the influencer. And these relationships, these long-term partnerships really involve sort of three core tenets, right? You need alignment on goals and values, number one on this slide. Number two, you need ongoing value generation for both parties. And number three, you need to have a relationship that is explicit and consensual. It has to be an agreement explicitly and a consensual agreement. Sorry, that was a bit redundant. But long-term influencer partnerships are also better for unified marketing measurement. To again, bring it back to the beginning of this conversation. The longer the partnership, the more ground you have to compare influencers' effects over other channels like, display ads or TV, for example. And with more time, because of that long-term relationship, that long-term partnership, you can actually gather more longitudinal data and see if the influencer marketing is improving or degrading in the model over time to understand, for example, if a specific influencer's level of influence is decreasing or changing in social media platforms based on, the way they've adjusted the algorithm for their feed, or if any of that is affecting an influencer's ability to promote a brand. This unified marketing measurement model will help you see the differences over time. So you'll want to build a partner ecosystem that is centered on sort of co-innovation and co-creation. And, as a marketer, you can think about positioning partners as part of this ecosystem of value. I love that term, ecosystem of value, around the brand and around the business by reframing sort of four things. One, how you select partners. You can start cultivating partners from the long list of the people you may already have involved with your brand. And from these, you can sort of filter out the ones who are uninterested in brand partnerships and those uninteresting to the brand due to the sort of size of their personal network or their values. As an example, one national retailer combined both technology and a partnership mindset to identify and groom valuable partners who had already expressed interest in its retail brand and its products. The second thing you can think about is how you construct partnerships. So think about approaching and commissioning partners with a very large palette of ways to engage and interact with their followers. So each side of the partnership can sort of selectively build and maintain the most meaningful kind of relationship. As an example, a skincare company worked with its partners, not just on sponsored posts, but also on tutorials and product kits and lifestyle conversations, which really helped to double this skincare company's sales. And then think about how you measure partner contribution, bringing it full circle. Make those connections between each partner's activities through to specific brand and sales uplift in order to demonstrate the value and optimize how these partner relationships work. So for example, a spirits brand connected partner-driven interactions through to retargeted sales on its e-commerce sites. And some large retailers are sort of building large partner cohorts where they can track the activities and see if they're driving traffic and engagement and tie them directly to product sales and brand loyalty. And the last thing I'll leave you with on this slide is think about how you reward your partners. You can complement sort of a broader spectrum of ways for partners to interact with your brand, with sort of equally broad and varied value propositions. And, you know, maybe these span from close to full-time employment to entirely hobby or fun related outcomes. One CPG company, as an example, cultivates a smaller, it cultivates its base of very smaller partners through personalized products and one-off experiences, which I thought was interesting. So I'll leave you with this. Influencer marketing solution vendors can help you build these long-term partnerships. They help facilitate and foster these types of relationships that are really important to marketers. And you can see here when we surveyed B2C marketing decision makers this year in 2022, and we asked about their future use of ad tech in the next 12 months leading into 2023. Influencer marketing solutions were rank ordered second on this list. And I have to caveat responsibly that this data isn't statistically significant because of the small spread from the top answer choice to the bottom, but it's helpful to think about this data directionally as a rank order list rather than take too much stock in the actual percentage points. But the point of this is to say that influencer marketing solution vendors help with these, facilitate these long-term partnerships, maintain these long-term partnerships, and can help with the measurement piece as well to help feed into unified marketing measurement models. So that's it from me. Let me stop sharing my screen. I hope that was helpful to sort of just tee off unified marketing measurement and why it's so essential to marketers. And next, I'd love to open the floor to our panelists, Tim and Casey, to answer some more questions for us as it pertains to influencer marketing in particular.
Amazing. And Jesse, before you jump in, just a quick PSA. Yeah. The chat is open and working for everyone. We got that fixed, so chat away. Amazing.
Don't be shy. Okay, let's start with a question for Casey. In a nutshell, tell us from your perspective, what are the main challenges that you're seeing influencer marketing face when it comes to unified measurement? Like, how can brands get to where they should be with unified marketing measurement?
Well, first, Jesse, I just want to thank you for that presentation. And I know I got to see it, I got a sneak preview, so I got to see it before, and I was nodding along the whole time because it really does resonate with me personally and someone who works in this space, because the challenges that you identified and the work that's being done and what we want to, and what is that holy grail we want to get to, it absolutely identify with. So thank you for that. I think one of the areas that you touched on, but we didn't really talk about it in this way, I would say, is just transparency and measurement. And so when we talked about the social platforms, I just wanted to build a little bit on that piece, because some of the work that we've been doing, and I think this is really something that all of us as marketers can work to push for, as I think about a bit of a call to action to the folks listening today, is really to push for transparency from the social platforms to receive the data that we need to do this type of measurement. Because the way that I look at it, as anything that we can do in paid media, anything that we can measure via paid media on those platforms, we want to be able to do for earned media and owned media. And that really isn't the case today. So I really think, Jesse, that would allow us to not have to jump through so many hoops to try to triangulate some of this data in different ways, and would really open up, I think, opportunities. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest hurdles that we're dealing with at the moment.
Yeah, that is, I would say, similar on our side. It's just getting the transparency and getting sort of being able to do the apples to apples comparisons across paid, owned, and earned. Totally agree with you there. All right, let's follow up then with a question for Tim. As the world continues to digitize and as social media platforms are constantly evolving and in some cases multiplying, what does this mean for influencer marketing in their quest, sort of in marketers' quests for measuring these programs with a unified approach?
Yeah, you touched on this a little bit, but I think there are several headwinds that marketers are facing across all consumer channels right now. It's just a reality of 2022 going into 2023. Things like targeting challenges due to iOS and privacy restrictions. You touched on the fragmented media landscape. I mean, just in this channel, we're talking about tens of millions of creators now in the ecosystem, let alone connected TV and out of home and cable and everything else. And finally, you also mentioned this, consumer buying habits and brand discovery are changing, right? I'm sure we've all read about TikTok becoming a search engine in the past 3 months. But really, influencer marketing can help break through a lot of these challenges, whether it be from targeting or fragmentation or otherwise. So the way we think about it is it's a double opt-in channel for marketers. So you have creators raising their hands saying that they want to work with brands and work with the social platforms. And then you have consumers opting in to hear from those creators. So a lot of the privacy restrictions that come or some of the inefficiencies that now come with attribution and targeting for things like traditional social ads, you can really break through those barriers with this channel, because consumers have determined that they want to hear explicitly or directly from these creators, celebrities, individuals, et cetera. But with that said, and Casey, you touched on this a little bit, there's just the massive nuances of the social platforms. I mean, even talking about multiplying, when you look at a platform like TikTok, it's fundamentally changed, their algorithm has fundamentally changed how consumers receive content. They're built on a content graph, not a social graph. It doesn't matter who you follow, it matters what content you engage with. And so you have these real nuances in the platforms changing, and also, not even to mention that they measure views of a video differently if you're Facebook or YouTube. So to Casey's point, you really need to trust the likes of the ANA and the recent guidelines as a North Star. As Casey mentioned, we collectively have to work together as an industry to be able to make the advancements that we need for this channel really to be unified with the other kind of older or more mature channels.
I feel like that's a really good segue, Tim, and thank you for mentioning that. Because I want to pick at a little bit what Casey, what metrics do you feel like are most important for influencer marketers to actually measure? But maybe before you get to that, we know that you helped build out influencer marketing measurement guidelines with the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers. And those guidelines are really interesting. I mean, maybe you could tell us a little bit about that process and the methodology behind those guidelines, and then sort of what leads you to the metrics that you think are most important to measure for influencer marketing.
Absolutely. All of the challenges that have been set up in the conversation that Tim just talked about and you talked about earlier were the crux of why we even started the brand advisory board in the first place. We felt like, or at least I personally felt like, there's lots of agency metrics, proprietary metrics out there. There were a lot that clearly the platforms, as Tim said, are measuring things differently, right? So the apples to apples is really difficult. And so we came together and we said one of the first challenges that we wanted to address was this issue in standardization. So how could we actually go from agencies grading their own homework to having a bit more of a standard? And it was not easy. I mean, the amount of time, and Tim definitely helped participate in some of the feedback sessions with agencies. It was really, really difficult. Different platforms have different data. But really, when all was said and done, the guidelines were a huge step forward to helping us at least level set, right, as a starting point. So, we look at it as the beginning, right? Like this is just the beginning. And so if we can provide some sort of foundation upon which we can continue to build more sophisticated opportunities of measurement, that's really what we want to do. We know that we didn't solve everything by creating the metrics, but it was a place to actually start. So when we look at the opportunities coming forward, we say, okay, well, this was the first step. And now then what can we do, moving forward? So really, I think, again, big step forward, but much more work to be done. In terms of the actual metrics we look at, it really depends on what the objective is, right? We're very much based in our objectives, and we base our KPIs on our objectives. So that could be, if we're looking at more of an awareness type campaign, we might be looking at things more like reach, and other awareness driving metrics. Or if it's a lower funnel campaign, we'll be looking at more lower funnel metrics. I think the key for us, though, is how do you look at these metrics over time to optimize and continue to build on the work that's been done. And so what we're trying to move away from, others are too, are really one and done type of work. And Jesse, you really underscored this, right? The longer term relationships, the longer term work allow us to start to see patterns and opportunities to leverage and optimize our data, which then allows us to optimize the work, the output that's actually coming through from our creator relationships.
Amazing. And being at Unilever, which is such a massive company, do you feel like there's any specific influencer marketing campaigns from a specific brand, or maybe you could speak more across the brands? Because I imagine they have varying campaign objectives. Is there any one specific one that comes to mind that you would hold up as a shining example of how you measured successfully the influencer marketing campaign?
Oh my gosh, that's like choosing between my children.
Okay, well done.
No. It's I think that it's happening differently in different places. I think one great example is some of the work that's happening in Dove. They're really looking at, and I wouldn't say one campaign over another, but they are looking at competitive benchmarking, and then how are they stacking up against that? So then as their campaigns come in, over time, they're looking at how that moves the needle from a competitive perspective, right? So, just one example of ways for us to be able to gauge how we're doing in the space and what we can do to improve.
I've always appreciated the Dove case studies. I feel like they're always very strong. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Last question for Tim, just to wrap up this panel Q&A part. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about how important it is for marketers to leverage tools, whether that be agencies or technologies, to help streamline the measurement process.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no kind of one size fits all formula here. Every company is built a little differently, but what we've seen to be the kind of secret sauce is a real balance between technologies and managed services, and even to distinguish agencies versus in-house managed services really just speaks to the makeup of an organization. But what we tend to see, not surprisingly, is that over time, over maturity, as brands start to scale and advance their efforts, automation becomes so much more important, right? You can manage tens of creators, but some of our largest customers are working with north of 200,000 creators globally on an annual basis. What's the visibility into those creators? To Casey's point, what's the benchmarking in this ecosystem? And not benchmarking just globally for Unilever, but benchmarking for an individual Unilever brand in an individual market in South America, right? So really being able to provide that global scale and visibility. Typically, you're going to need technology. But I think what's really, really important here is we are very careful to never use the term programmatic for influencer marketing. I think one of the biggest inherent advantages or values of the category actually is the human element, right? Whether that be on the B2B side, or on the business side, which is, creative and strategy and everything that comes with it, whether it actually be on the creator side of the ecosystem and the value that they deliver. So yes, you want to find automation opportunities, but you don't want to lose that human touch. Relationships are still very, very important here, but you need to scale, and scale usually comes via automation. So again, what we typically see is that over time, there is still a mix of managed services and technology, but things like data ownership, and to this entire conversation, unified measurement, feeding this into mixed media models internally, that's typically owned by the brand over time. And so that's where technology or solutions like CreatorIQ come into play.
Amazing. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for providing the valuable insights and guidance on this webinar and the panel Q&A. I know we have a lot of questions from the audience, which is great. So let me pull that up and I'll start going through them. Okay, first question in chronological order. This one's probably for you, Tim. Is CreatorIQ creating any form of cross-platform single view analysis for influencers?
Yeah, so I saw the question in the chat. Happy to take this one offline. So we do provide a multi-platform view of a given creator's following engagement, so kind of discovery side of things, or CM pre-campaign is a good way to put this. So it doesn't really matter if you're TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, etc. We have preferred API partnerships with every social platform and are pulling in the ever-changing, but literally the newest, most relevant data that we can access from our partners. And then on the reporting side, we absolutely do provide a multi-platform, kind of multi-view of a campaign's performance. So whether that be on the individual creator level or a cohort of creators, there are ways to be able to look at kind of roll-ups of a given audience for a cohort of creators, or kind of expected performance of a group of creators. So completely understand the question. Multi-platform is still key. I believe over 70% of campaigns that flow through CreatorIQ on a monthly basis still are multi-platform. So only about 30% are singular to Instagram or TikTok or YouTube down the line.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that, Tim. Next question. Are there any ways to measure in-store foot traffic through influencer marketing? Not sure if Tim or Casey have answers for that. I will say on my end, when you think about unified marketing measurement, in theory, you can track paid and owned channels as long as, again, you have a cost and you have an outcome. So you need, whether that cost is the store itself, you determine what cost goes into the store, but then the outcome, which might be, foot traffic, number of visitors, could be an amount of sales converted in that store. Those are things you can absolutely input into a unified marketing measurement model, or multiple models within unified marketing measurement. But in terms of the influencer piece, that is a little bit harder to attribute unless you have some kind of mechanism to do that, which could be, an in-store survey asking how you ended up here, or some kind of tie-in with a proprietary app when you're in store and being able to then attribute it back to the influencer, or some kind of code that you use that came from a specific influencer. But that I would say is sort of the execution that I've seen. I don't know if you guys have other answers.
Yeah, Jesse, I think you nailed it. The digital digital consumer experience is, even just in the last couple of years, has been made huge strides to be able to close the loop on things like conversion, sales, downloads, et cetera, in a digital ecosystem, whether that happens on social platforms, in walled gardens, et cetera. But closing that loop is much easier today than even pre-pandemic. But you nailed it's really always going to be a multi-touch attribution model. So very rarely are you going to be able to measure a single frequency of seeing a Instagram post to someone walking in the store and buying a product. But does it tell a kind of unified story? Can you survey? Can you ask where this brand or this retail store? There are third-party solutions out there, and whether it's influencer marketing or other digital channels, connecting digital to in-store as part of this mix.
Okay. Next question. For a business with a small budget to no budget, how would you recommend us to pitch collaborations with influencers? You might be on mute, Casey.
I could take that. yes, we have a large brand portfolio and some extremely large brands, but we also have much smaller brands and startup brands. So my thought is probably to start small and look to build a business case that perhaps then could tap into different budgets as you move forward. But you know, when we look at influencer marketing, there's both a paid side, right? There's that the higher side, it's like the inspire or hire. There's the higher side where you're transacting, right, to enable some sort of creation, right? There's a value exchange, usually with money. I think the other piece is really around how do you inspire folks to want to be part of your community? And so if you have a good or a service that you can provide or bring people into your community to do that, that would probably be, if there's no budget, that's probably where I would try to start to build connections and build relationships and get to know different folks in the space, and probably start small with smaller sized influencers to do that. But I think that's a good place to start.
Cool. Thank you. Tim, if you don't have anything to add, I can move on to the next question. Okay, there's this sort of looming recession or talk of recession. And not to make light of it, but marketing leaders are feeling crunched for time and resources right now. So how could marketers really think about optimizing marketing budgets? It's not a small question. I can take a stab at sort of answering that first, and then Tim and Casey, if you want to jump in. Okay, well, hopefully, if you already have a unified marketing measurement approach and you are using a variety of models, whether that's MTA or mixed marketing modeling or time, and you're doing your time regression analysis, that is hopefully allowing you to sort of see which channels are overperforming, which channels are underperforming, and you can then make an informed decision about pulling the lever for one channel over another channel. That would be the ideal scenario to help you tackle this this recession and allow you to make strategic decisions about channel allocation and budget. In the absence of that, of a unified marketing measurement approach, you know, the common ways to think about it are sort of within your channels. And when I talked earlier about marketing being so siloed and people working in channels and often making independent channel decisions, that tends to be, I don't want to say the default, but like kind of the norm, even though it shouldn't be. It's sort of the norm to make these sort of isolated channel decisions and to understand your own channel's performance benchmarked against yourself in that channel over time. And so that is one, I guess, way to think about it in the absence of unified marketing measurement. But I just want to be clear that the goal is unified marketing measurement, to be able to look across channels and make accurate assessments of the incremental value of each channel within your broader marketing mix.
Yeah, Jesse, I think your analysis is spot on. I would think about it in a phased approach, right? Think about this channel first. Do you have your standards built? Are you measuring every campaign the same way, every creator the same way, every channel the same way? If you are working with external partners, whether it be agencies or otherwise, are you ensuring that they are measuring the channel if they're helping you with things like reporting and measurement the same way? How are you building your standards for this channel? Once you have that done, and hopefully lots of folks on this call are either in the middle of that or have achieved that, how are you pulling that in an automated way into those mixed media panels? And how are you ensuring that those panels are updating over time to take into account this new channel? And we have seen in some mixed media or mixed marketing panels that oftentimes adding in something like an entirely new channel like influencer marketing can make things a little wonky for a bit, right? So how is it getting smarter over time? And those are all really, really key areas. The other thing I would add is that we are seeing more scrutiny, obviously, on every dollar being spent already. So we're definitely seeing the brand budgets move a little bit more to performance, a little bit more brand lift, moving to more mid to bottom of funnel already. We've seen this accelerate with categories like retail, especially, even though I did see just from Forrester today that consumer spending is looking to be flat or maybe even up a little bit. I think brands are really over the next year, the brands are really trying to get ahead of it to make sure that they have clarity going into this holiday season, going into 2023, and are really protected from that downside.
Cool. Well, I just noticed that we are at time, and I know we have many other really great questions that have come in. Maybe I don't know if CreatorIQ has a plan, but we can certainly try to address those questions after the fact. But I do want to turn it back over to Tim because I know we're at time and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So Tim, over to you to close it out.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much to Jesse and Casey for joining us today. Could not agree more. Those 45 minutes just flew by. I feel like we could talk for another 45 and probably not get through all the great questions. So I did see this in the Q&A. This webinar will be available on demand. Keep an eye out in your email for that. We are happy to answer any questions at CreatorIQ if we missed it. If you're a customer, talk to your customer success manager. If not, you can reach out to us via other channels like our social channels, like LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you. But thank you again for everyone who joined. And thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Casey. Have a good day.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.